Hey everybody, welcome to a quick tutorial video about some classy code templates that I've got on my website. I'm Robert. If you haven't been to my website before, please visit robobogan.com. I make these templates. I made these templates for Classy so that nonprofits and other organizations that are using Classy can create custom layouts in their Classy pages that allow you to do columns and grid layouts that you can't normally do in Classy yet. They are coming out with a page layout builder that will help you do things like this. But in the meantime, you can use these 9 free code templates on my website to make column grid layouts like this preview image here for your Classy pages as well. They work really well on peer-to-peer campaigns, crowdfunding campaigns, things like that. And so go ahead and subscribe to get those Classy templates, and then periodically as I have more content to share, I'll email that to my subscribers like you, and make sure you sign up to get the latest updates. Today I have an update from a question from a subscriber named Allie. Allie says, I hope your holiday season was good. I have a couple of questions. I'm having some Classy coding issues. I attached what it looks like in the code, and I attached what it looks like and the code I'm using. So I'll show you a preview of that in a second. And then she says, here's what I'd like to have happen. Make the text white, make the background black, and if possible with the bullets, can I shift the text to be aligned left instead of center? The answer to all these is yes, you can certainly do that. And so let's take a look at the code, and then we'll take a look at the preview image that she sent, and we'll take a look at how the code affects that. Okay, real quick, let's take a look at this preview image that she sent, that Allie sent us. The section that she's talking about is this section down here with this olive green background. She wants the background to be black, she wants the text to be white, and then she wants the bullets to be left aligned. And so as you can see, it's got that olive green background. I will say that if we weren't going to do a black background for both of these, I would probably add some padding or some margin in between here to make sure that there was enough spacing on these words to make them more readable, just some nice breathing room on that section. But because we're going to go straight to the same color as the block above it, and there's plenty of space between here, you're probably fine making that black background change without adding any padding on the top. But if you look down here, we've got this text down here is running right up against the edge of that white line, and I would bet that white section is the next section of the page. So I would recommend putting some padding at the bottom of the section as well, and so we'll take a look at that as well. Okay, here we are in the code. I'm currently using Brackets, but I do recommend Visual Studio Code. Brackets is actually a discontinued product, but Adobe's Visual Studio Code is a nice platform for getting a code editor like this. Editing code in a code editor like this just is a lot nicer because you have the color coding that lets you know what things are. And things like this, for example, these are red because they're actually broken. And so if we look up at the top here, we don't actually start this unordered list tag. There's no unordered list start tag. And then there's no paragraph tag before it. And then this div tag is ending, technically it's ending this div, but then the div before it doesn't end at all. And then this tag ends this div, that kind of thing. So everything's out of sorts here a little bit. So we're going to do some cleanup. Allie, go ahead and follow along and do this cleanup as well, in addition to the things we're going to talk about to get you settled for the changes you wanted to make. So first things first, this grid container, the top div up here, should be holding all the grid items. So we have one grid item here, grid item 2, grid item 3. Those are the 3 columns. And so what we really need to do is move this div. Actually, no, this div needs to end that div, so that's fine where it is. We need to add another div down here, though, so that we have a div, this div is ended down here, and then this one is ended here, this one ends there, this one ends right there. And just double checking to figure out why it's still saying it's broken because these two are in the way. But every list item, if you have an unsorted list like that, where they're an unordered list, where they're not going to be numbered, you want to go ahead and make sure you start your unordered list like this with a UL tag. That UL tag is going to tell the browser, make this an unordered list. I don't want it to be numbered. I just want, whatever the default list style for the bullets are, go ahead and make those bullets instead of numbers. Now you can, if you get more crazy with the CSS, you can actually determine what those list styles look like, but we're not going to cover that in this session. So now you could actually keep that paragraph tag. If you wanted to keep it, you could move it up. I'm just going to cut it real quick, move it up here, The unordered list tag does not need a paragraph wrap around it, but if you wanted to keep it the same size as the rest of the font, we can move this class, font20, that determines the font size. We can move that into the unordered list if we want to keep that font size throughout this. We also could move that, go ahead and delete this paragraph because there's no text that we're going to try to hold there. We could move that font size tag, that class. We could move it all the way up here and put it inside the div, and then everything inside this whole entire thing would be 20 pixels for the font, because that's what font20 is determined by down here in the CSS. Now you can change that to whatever you want. That just happens to be the default that I set up in this template. For now, I'm going to leave it where it is so that we don't have to worry about changing that. Down here we can actually see we have a paragraph tag starting our list again, so we actually want to make that paragraph into an unordered list. Remember, you have to have an unordered list tag and then list elements within the unordered list. So every single list, if it's an unordered list, let's just make some room here. Your unordered list is always going to look like this. You're telling the browser to start a list by saying UL like that, and then you're going to put individual list items in the list, and these are all your individual bullets. Right? So you can put as many as you want within the list, but you do have to tell it, start making a list. If you don't tell it to start making a list, you can get the code gets a little funky. And so make sure you always start your tag, and make sure you always end your tag appropriately. And if you don't know how to do a certain element like that, just Google search it. Google search how to make a list in HTML, something like that. You can find a lot of great tutorials on web3schools.com, Stack Overflow also, but probably not so much on the basic HTML stuff. Stack Overflow tends to help more with more detailed development and things. But Web3 Schools is a great resource. There's tons of places to learn HTML code, that kind of thing. Basic rule of thumb, though, is whatever you start, you got to end. So if you start a heading 3 like this, you got to end it over here. And so just make sure you clean up your code that way. For example, we started a unordered list here, and we haven't ended it yet, and so it's telling us there's an error. And I love these color-coded these color-coded programs like this because they help with being able to visually see everything. They also help with auto-completing code. And so if I just type the left bracket and the back and the forward slash, it automatically autofills. It autofills the rest of the code that's missing, and so that can help speed up your time going in here and changing things. Here again we have a paragraph tag with list elements inside of it, but we never actually started the unordered list. So we'll go ahead and start that unordered list. We don't need the paragraph tag, but we'll keep that font size again. And then I just like to keep it visually balanced so that things are tabbed inside of each other when they're nested inside of each other. So this list element lives underneath the unordered list, and so I just like to tab it over, hit the tab key, and push it over a little bit, indent it a little bit to make it visually more obvious that it's part of the thing above it. Okay, so now we've cleaned up the code. There's no more code errors, no more red sections in our code, and so now we know the code is working. Now let's take a look at two different things: the font color and the bullet alignment, to make sure we set those properly. Okay, so we take a look at the code again, and we say, why is the text all centered? Well, first of all, text center is right here on the parent element for the grid container. Text center is a class that I created down here, and before Ali changed it, it would have said text align center. Looks like Ali changed it to text align left, trying to force it to push everything to the left. And actually, when I was looking at this, I had the same question: why wasn't it working? Because that's exactly what you normally should have done. But then I started looking down here at the rest of the rows and columns layout section. Now, I created this template to automatically align center everything within the grid items to make sure that it looked good, and the headings and the photos and stuff that you might include in a column all stayed centered. For us, that tends to be what we do, and so I haven't run into this problem before. However, right here is where it's defining text align center, and it's defining that on the grid item. So every single time there's a grid item, 1, 2, 3, each of our columns, the grid item is also being given a text align center CSS down here. So Ali, what we're going to do is we're just going to take this off and delete it. Okay, and then we're just going to take text align center off of all of these grid items. So So if you find yourself in a situation where you want your grid items to not have text align center by default, go ahead and modify the template here, take those text align center off, and that should do it. And now we're going to take this text center and I'll leave that text center the way it was instead of changing it to what Ali changed it to. But feel free to do this if you ever need to. You could copy that code and change the CSS class to text left or text right. And then text align left, right, and center is the appropriate way to determine that within CSS. And so now you also have a text left class that you can apply to something if you really wanted to. By default, though, these bullets, now that we've removed that text align center class from down here in the grid layout, now that we've removed that, those bullets should automatically align left because that's their default state. So now we're going to go back and take this text center class and just apply it to the things that only the things we want to. So this text center class is still going to tell everything underneath it, which is all of it, to be text centered. And so we're going to take that off. And then we're going to put it on just these titles, because the titles look pretty good centered over top of all of the, and actually don't do the, don't copy the dot. You don't need the period when you're putting it inside the class on a tag like this. Don't put the period there. Okay. So now we've got a heading 3 that is text-centered based on the CSS we've got down here, and then all the other stuff should be aligned left by default based on what's default for a browser. So that was one of the problems. Making the background black we'll talk about last, so the next thing we want to talk about is making the text white. Now there's two different ways to do this, and it's just like doing the text center option. We can either say, so here's text white down here, it's a default class that I created. And then it's got that color for the white color there. And so we can either apply that to everything by just putting it up here and putting text white inside of this class and saying everything that's inside of this div, make the text white. And so that's going to apply it to every single piece here. And then when we go check it in the browser, it's going to actually make the all the text turn white on top of a white page. And so we won't be able to see it. So for my purposes, I'm going to change this white color to blue, just to prove that it works, but leave that hashtag with 3 F's after it to make your text white if you want to make it white, or go ahead and change this to any hex value. You could change it to a gray, a dark gray, something like that. Any color you want, just you can go ahead and change your color there. And if you do change your color to something like blue or some other custom color for your brand, I would recommend changing this class or copying the class and making a new one that's your custom color. So you could copy this and say, maybe your main brand color is red, so you could say text red, and then you could change your color here to whatever your red color is. I'm just going to pick red in general. And so this one technically can stay as white. And so, okay, let's do red instead of blue here. So I'll come up here and I'll say text red. Again, you're going to say text white, but I'm going to say text red. And then we're going to go check the browser and make sure that we're going to save it, check the browser and make sure this actually worked. If the text all turns red, we got left aligned bullets and centered headings, then we're doing good. And here we are back in the code. I went ahead and refreshed it. This is what it looks like now. And so we did change the font color, and we still have this centered, and these are now left aligned. So that's exactly what we wanted to have happen. Of course, these shouldn't be red. Ali's going to make hers white on a black background. Feel free to make yours any changes you want to make yours the right color for yourself. And then finally, the third thing that Ali wanted to do was make the background black for this section. Now you could technically try to do that in the code, but there's no reason to do that. I don't think it would actually work well within the Classy template, because the way that Classy programs the section is that your custom code lives within a container that lives on the page. And so what you actually have to do is change the background color of the Classy container, not your custom container. And so in order to change the background color of a Classy section, page section, even the custom blocks, on the left side of the screen when you're editing a Classy campaign, you can scroll all the way down below the HTML and CSS editor, and you should see a background color option to change the background color on that Classy custom block. I don't have Classy available on this computer here at home, and so I can't go ahead and show you what that looks like, but it's really easy to find. Go to your custom code block in Classy and just scroll below the custom code editing section. Scroll below that code editing block, and you should see a background color changer. So go ahead and switch that to whatever color you want. In this case, we're going to do black, and then you should be all set. So really appreciate you guys checking out this video, learning a little bit more about how to customize these templates. Like I said, check out my blog, check out the templates if you haven't downloaded them yet, and reach out to me at robo@robobogan.com if you have any questions. I'm happy to help do more videos like this as I can. This isn't my day job, but I do appreciate the opportunity to help you guys out, so anything I can do to help is great. So I just really appreciate you guys, and hope you guys had a great holiday as well, and hope you have a wonderful new year here in 2023. Thanks.